Hello, everybody. Stefan Molyneux sitting in for Peter Schiff. I really, really need you to move someplace sunny. Right by the window, look straight into the light. We're about to have Gerald Celente on the show, and he can turn out the sun with a rational evaluation of our economic situation. Just wanted to mention briefly, we were going to talk about it in the last segment with Mark Skousen. Global Financial Summit. You might want to check it out, freedomfest.com/GFS. Now, it is going to be in the Bahamas. And it is very important to try and find a way to take a bullet for the cause and get to the Bahamas in February 5th to 8th, 2014. So I hope you'll check that out. And Gerald, are you on the line? Let me just give you a brief intro. Let me pretend I'm professional. And Gerald, of course, runs a well-respected Trends Research. And it's really, really important that you check out his work. He's been right, I think, with fairly consistent accuracy about the effects of growing state power on the economy and your future, TrendsJournal.com. Gerald, are you on the line?
I'm here, Stefan.
How are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, so I know that you're a macro guy. I certainly don't mind dipping into the microplanet, but where are we in the economy? Inflation doesn't seem to have hit with money printing. Gold remains kind of low. A lot of the predictions of people on the libertarian side of things, I know you call yourself a political atheist, but where is this stuff panning out? It seems that there's been a kind of miscalculation on the part of some people who are suggesting investments and so on with gold and with inflation and so on. So what if you think there's a drift from predictions, where do you think it's happening and why?
Well, let's take a look at what's going on, for example. You know, this is, as you said, a macro issue, and it's a global economy. Look what's going on in India today. The numbers just came out. Consumer inflation went up 11.24%. And what have they done in India? I mean, the Indians like gold as much as curry, you know, and they can't buy it anymore because the government has put on so many restrictions. So many taxes, so many penalties. It's the biggest black market item in the country right now. So it depends where you are. So, for example, let's look in the United States. Well, you know, I was never, by the way, one of the people that said it would be hyperinflation in the U.S. I kept saying it would be a devaluation of the currency, and it would cost you more to buy things, which is different in the sense that it's not a supply and demand issue where the price of things are going up because of inflation. They're going up because the value of your currency is declining. And that's what I believe is still going to happen. So on the overall level, and again, look at what happened today. We just saw the numbers come out.
I'm sorry, Gerald, to interrupt. We're just going to call you back in just a second. We just got a really crackly connection. Sometimes the NSA, what they do is they drum their fingers on the table when our callers come in. I mean, they're not supposed to, of course, but they do sometimes when they listen in on these things. So we'll get you back in just a second. I think that this question of inflation is interesting because it has been a long time since there's been a world reserve currency. I guess the British pound was the last one. It's been a long time since there's been a world reserve currency as widely accepted and adopted in the world as the United States dollar. There are actually more dollars circulating in Russia than there are in America, as far as that goes. So that is propping up a lot of the U.S. value. And, of course, there is still a lot of economic strength in the United States. A lot of innovation comes out of the United States in the healthcare field, in the technology field. So I think that's propping up the U.S. dollar. Gerald, do we have you back?
I'm back. Okay, so as I was saying, you know, so look what's happened, for example. The yuan, the Chinese currency, has increased, dramatically over the last 4 years. I think it was just this year it was up about another 2.5%. Deutsche Bank's expecting it to go up again next year by another 2 or 3% against the dollar. So you can see where these trends are leading. And as I see it, here's our forecast, by the way, for 2014 on the economic front. And we're just coming out with the top trends for 2014 for the Trends Journal within a couple of days. So this is kind of like a scoop. We believe there's going to be tapering. And whether it happens on later this month or early or mid-January, it's going to be one of those times we believe, and it'll be a little bit of tapering. And what's going to happen when that happens, you're going to start seeing the world equity markets go into panic. Because the only way that's keeping this Ponzi scheme going is by the central banks, led by the United States, pumping all of these trillions of dollars worth of digital money, not worth the paper it's not printed on, into the system. So I mentioned India before, all of these BRIC nations, the emerging markets, they've been growing because of the hot money flowing out of the United States primarily because of the low interest rates and into these countries. So now you're seeing that the money flow is stopped. And now, for example, I mentioned India before. You watch, they're going to raise interest rates again. Okay, so I get it. Your country's going into recession. Your inflation numbers are skyrocketing, so you have to slow it down by raising inflation. Oh, that'll make your recession really nice, won't it? It'll turn it into a depression. So now going back to the entire scheme of what's going to happen, we believe that when they announce the tapering and begin to do it, it's going to cause panic. And then they're going to ease up again and start printing money. That's the only way this economy keeps going. The facts are in front of everyone. So that when they start pumping again, that's when you're going to see the big gold spike. Gold's down now as we speak, about $28. If the numbers came out with terrible new claims for unemployment. And so the whole thing is rigged. And they're going, and again, is it rigged? No. They're rigging the LIBOR rate. They're rigging the Forex. No, but they would never rig this. So it's not in the interest of the central bankers to have gold prices go up, or if you're in India and they love gold more than any other country, to have the people buy it. So you can see what's going on.
Well, and one of the things, we're going to take a break in a minute or so, one of the things I think that's kind of misunderstood among people who aren't economy geeks like us is the degree to which when companies jig with interest rates, when they jig with money supply, it creates massive malinvestment. And this is, it sounds like a really dull term, but it's really important for people to understand. It sends the wrong signals to entrepreneurs. It sends the wrong signals to business executives. It sends the wrong signals to the youth in terms of what they study and what they learn and the skills that they acquire. And when the sea changes, when the interest rates change, when the money supply changes or contracts or even expands, fundamental changes occur in the economy. Think of how much money and time and effort and skills were wasted building this massive stock of U.S. housing, 10% of which is now uninhabited. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back after the break, and we're going to talk about the effects of this kind of malinvestment and how painful, how agonizing it can be for a society to shift resources to what the free market wants rather than what the central planners in the central banks think is best for everyone. This is Stefan Molyneux for Peter Schiff. We will be right back with Gerald Celente.
The Peter Schiff Show. If knowledge is power, then the Peter Schiff Show is a uranium-enriched 10,000 megawatt nuclear reactor. Stay plugged in. Stay brilliant. This is the Peter Schiff Show.
Well, I guess it will be tomorrow. Today I'm sitting in for Peter Schiff. This is Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. We've got Gerald Celente on the line, and we're talking about how governments mess up interest rates, mess up money supply, and that causes entrepreneurs with companies and even young people in terms of their education to malinvest, to go into the wrong areas because they're getting the wrong signals. It's a great quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, the man who had a mustache big enough to qualify as 2 Arkansas ditch caterpillars stapled to his cheek. And he said, give a man a why and he can bear almost any how. Give a man a why and he can bear almost any how. If we know what our sacrifices are for, we are able to make them. There is going to be sacrifice in transitioning from all of this central planning to something more rational, to something more free, to something more voluntary. Do you think people are even close to understanding, Gerald, what is necessary to change things from where they're heading?
No. I think there are, I mean, the people obviously that are listening now, yes, and the people, that tune into, your Peter Schiff's work and mine and others. But for the majority, no. They still put their trust in the two-headed one-party system. It's kind of like, for example, I'm hearing, about this Elizabeth Warren, if she gets, does she have a shot at the presidency or, whatever the party is. I mean, what are you going to put? It's the Mafia. Right? What is one person going to make the difference? They're corrupt organizations. I think if you're going to look to see where the change is starting to happen, you have to look to Europe. And whether it's in the Czech Republic, whether it's in the Netherlands or in Italy. I mean, what's going on in Italy now, everyone should be paying attention to if you want to see a new model. And that's that whole pitchfork movement, the pitchfork protests. And they call it pitchforks because it began with Sicilian farmers. But they're storming every major city right now in Italy. And the police, as a matter of fact, they took off their helmets and put down their shields in support of the people because
wait a second. Sorry to interrupt you for just a moment, Gerald. Are you saying that people in Sicily have some idea how to fight the Mafia?
Well,
I can see that making a lot of sense. Actually,
it's not only Sicily. It's the entire country. It's a mafia over here. They just dress differently and speak differently. They call themselves Republicans and Democrats as they do all these dirty deals. Oh, and they don't call it bribes or payoffs. No, let's call it, I got a better name. How about campaign contributions? Look at what's going on now with this defense, with the moronic crap going on. Well, they just built an aircraft carrier for $13 billion. How many of their buddies made money on that? And go on the list. Go on down the list. Oh, with this new budget cuts, the Pentagon gets another $22 billion. Yeah, just what we need. It's a mafia everywhere. But going back to Italy, it's a model to look at, as well as in the Czech Republic and other places. They want to do away with the ruling governments. That's the only way it's going to happen, as I see it. You're not going to get change from a corrupt system.
No, and I agree with that. I think a blank page is kind of what we need for the future. And this is what is so frustrating. And I sort of use this very collective concept, but sort of we in the West used to be made of some pretty stern stuff. We took on fascism, National Socialism, and communism, and the theocracy of the Middle Ages. We used to be pretty good at fighting bad guys. And now it just seems like our entire spines have been drained out through what's left of our wallets, and we've been used to the slow morphine drip of government subsidies and government controls, and we have sold the future of our freedom for Obama phones. And it really is quite frustrating how little fight there seems to be left in our culture.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. There's very little fight. Again, it's the small group, but that's all it takes is a small group. Now, I call it the 20% solution. I mean, look at the revolution that happened in America. It began with a handful of people. And even at the height of the revolution, I think only about 40% supported it. And, it can happen. And matter of fact, one of the top trends that we're looking at now, it's called Wake Up Call. And it's about this populist movements going on around the world. And it's an overthrowing of the government and replacing them with truly democratic processes that don't exist. And by the way, one of the things that's making it work in Italy is that, and it's freaking them out too, and that is that the people like Beppe Grillo from the Five Star Movement and others, they're calling on the security forces to stop protecting the politicians and the institutions. Now, that'll freak them out. And that's what's stopping it, by the way. What's stopping it are the police in this country, the militarization of America. Look what's going on with the Super Bowl over here in New York. They're turning the place into a militarized zone. They got high security all throughout Manhattan. What is this? It's a damn football game. Oh, no, the terrorists always strike on Super Sunday, I tell you. I mean, who's making this crap up? It's fear and hysteria. It's the police in this country that are stopping freedom from happening. That's
and with all of the militarization, I mean, you have small towns in Utah buying armored personnel carriers. I mean, are they expecting gears to fight back?
Yeah, we got them right here in Albany. So it's going on. This is what has to happen. It has to look. How can the United States move into any direction that's going to be of a benefit when you see immorality at the top? Whether it's Bush lying us into the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. You remember Saddam Hussein, I'll tell you. He has them weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. Well, I saw Colin Powell. Colin, the perfect name for him, man. That's exactly where it leads to. They lie us into, well, how about Obama? I'll tell you what I'm going to do as I'm campaigning. We're going to be out of Afghanistan by 2014, I tell you. And I'll make it 2024. I got a number wrong. Every one of them are liars. Every one of them are criminal operations. How could there be any morality? The fish rots from the head down. There's silence in this country about the atrocities being committed. Look what's going on with that release that just came out by Seymour Hersh, showing the big lie about how Syria was using the sarin gas. Yep. Now, one of the major media picked the story up. The prostitutes avoided it.
And do you know why? Of course, you know why. The reason that Obama pulled a bunch of troops out of Iraq had nothing to do with any campaign promises, nothing to do with him remembering that he may have got some sort of peace prize, which I'm sure he wears around his neck when he orders drone strikes on civilians. The reason that he pulled his troops out of Iraq was because the Iraqi government had decided to no longer exempt the troops from law. In other words, if they killed, they were going to get prosecuted. If they committed atrocities, they were going to get prosecuted. And suddenly it's like, oh, the rule of law now applies to the troops? We are out of here. It's incredibly frustrating. This is
what I'm saying to you. It's immorality at the top. So how could we have a nation that's going to go in a positive way when this kind of behavior is sanctioned? I read Obama's speech yesterday, the one that he gave the other day, yesterday, that he gave at the Mandela Memorial. Yeah, I wanted to puke. It was filled with hypocrisies, talking about freedom and democracy as they, oh, by the way, anybody, the NSA is listening in on everybody, and they're probably listening in on now, right as we're talking. Because they're watching and listening all over, whether it's the local police, the CIA, the FBI,
Gerald,
the NSA.
You're breaking my heart. Hopefully we'll get you back on. Please call 855-4-SCHIFF. We're going to talk to you after the break. This is Stefan Molyneux for Peter Schiff.
We now return to the Peter Schiff Show.
Call in now, 855-4-SCHIFF.
That's 855-472-4433.
Rebel Radio, the Peter Schiff Show.
All right, we are back. For the last of two segments, please, I invite you to call in and chat, 855-4-SCHIFF, 855-472-4433. We have managed to trap Gerald Celente in the Peter Schiff dungeon of infinite talking. So I'm sorry, you were right in the middle of a rant, and as we all know, rantus interruptus is one of the most painful conditions. Keep going, my friend.
Yeah, this whole thing about, everybody. Who are these people that are listening to us? Who are they? What private contractors are we paying to the tune of $80 billion a year? Don't bail out Detroit. There's no money for anything. Look at the crummy rail systems we have in this country. Look what just happened in New York a couple of weeks ago. So there's no money, but we're paying all. Who are these people that are listening? So knowing that I was going to be on your show, my friend Frankie from Canarsie asked me to ask the NSA or CIA or local police that are listening in. He wants to know if their mother is still preferring to have sex with German shepherds. So for all you CIA guys and NSA guys, my friend Frankie wants to know that. I mean, who are these people that are listening to us? Who are they? Who anointed them to be our overseers? And it's happening throughout this nation. At every level, our freedoms are being robbed. and the people just keep taking it. And then when they say things like, calm down, speak politely, take it as an adult. Become a slave in Slavelandia. Know your place.
It is tragic. The only thing that I can say, the only positive thing that I can get out of that speech, which I agree with, is that it is nice for the actual German shepherds to get some, because otherwise, given that they live in Germany, all they have left is sheep. So it's nice that someone's mom's being thrown into the mix for those guys.
Every time I begin my conversations with everyone, I always begin it with asking the fellow or woman that's listening in what's going on in their lives.
Yeah, it's always been interesting to me, why would you want to control, to monitor, to eavesdrop? I don't know if you know this story. So before the financial crash in 2008, there was a little group of people called the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and they were, of course, charged with making sure that people acted honorably and forthrightly and ethically in financial dealings. And as it turned out, the significant proportion of the senior executives at the NSA were spending about 8 hours a day surfing porn. They found this through the logs on the computers. Some of them even put together PowerPoint presentations with porn images and videos in them. Now, I can't understand 8 hours of porn. That's, if you've got that kind of endurance, go catch a few bankers. Certainly, you're going to have a very strong handshake after that. But this is what these people are doing. It's completely insane.
I know. And then here's a great little story today in the Financial Times. J.P. Morgan set to settle Madoff claims. Jamie Dimon, chief executive of J.P. Morgan Chase, signaled the bank planned to pay penalties over allegations that it failed to notify U.S. authorities of its concerns that Bernard Madoff was running a Ponzi scheme. I love it. They failed to notify. Yeah, they wanted to keep the dirty deal going. How about that? And the other language, nobody ever does anything wrong. They misled or missold. It's never grand larceny. So the word justice is just us. Justus. They're spelling it wrong.
Right. Right. And there were mathematicians. There was a 60 Minutes. The mathematician had basically figured out that it was a complete Ponzi scheme and kept, sending letters to the SEC and to Congress people, to regulators saying, mathematically what this guy is promising is utterly impossible. It is a Ponzi scheme. Go get him. And they're like, yeah, we'll be right on that. But first of all, I've got a little bit more porn surfing to do, but I'll get right on that. And then, of course, they just fall asleep. It is tragic.
Or else they're busting the chops of us, the little people, for every minor infraction that we make. We're going to, enforce the letter of the law. But, hey, has anybody seen one head roll on Wall Street? And what has J.P. Morgan Chase paid this year in fines and penalties? What, about $16 billion? But nobody did anything wrong. It was just, I forgot to dot the I and cross the T. Sorry, we won't do it again. But we neither admit nor deny any wrongdoing.
And there's no. When people we have this weird mentality where, well, at least J.P. Morgan had to pay all those fines. There is no such thing as J.P. Morgan. It is a legal fiction. It is a legal shield for the rich that grants them immunity from basically the crimes that they commit. And people think that, well, we're levying a fine on them, it's going to cost them. No. What do? They don't give people as many raises. They don't hire as many people. They give less proceeds to their customers. All it does is spread the pain out. It's not like the houses of the rich get taken away when a fine gets levied on their corporation. It's the legal shield. It's all the little people, all the customers, all the employees who pay. And this is the opposite of any kind of justice that would be provided by any common law system.
And you know why? It's because of what you were saying about how all the young people are learning the wrong way now. They're being taught economics and other policies that no longer exist, because this is no longer a capitalistic system. And 4 words killed it. Too big to fail.
Yeah.
Oh, you saw the great news the other day. Oh, General Motors, the United States, finally sold the last of its stock, and we, the taxpayer, took approximately a $10 billion plus hit. But be that as it may, we saved jobs. But anyway, the fact of the matter is there is no capitalism in the United States. Those 4 words prove it. It's fascism. It's the merger of state and corporate powers. It's in front of everybody. This is not, you were talking about entrepreneurs. What entrepreneurs? It's multinationalization. They've taken over and virtually, look what's going on. I love what's going over in the Ukraine. They had Russian television over here interviewing me last Saturday, not RT, but the one out of Moscow. And I said, oh, yeah, they should be they should be doing everything they can to join the European Union. I guess they want to be just like those Greeks, right? Hey, how about 40% unemployment in Italy? Fight to get into the European Union. You could become a Spaniard or a Portuguese or Irish. Yeah, you could have nothing. They could tax you. They could rape you. They could rob you. Fight to join the European Union. This is not capitalism. It's fascism. We were just talking about the NSA. We were just talking about the militarization of the police force in the United States. Look what's going on with all the rape and robbery coming from the major banks and financial institutions with nobody doing any time.
Well, you and I slip one digit on our tax return and we can live in fear of the tax collection agencies. Greece can lie, falsify records to get into the European Union, and nobody suffers anything. In fact, they get heavily rewarded by getting lower interest rates than they would have if their own basket case economy had been exposed to the free market. But let me ask you a question. Okay, let me ask you a question, because Lord knows we can do this all day and end up with no spleen juice left at all. But if there was one, you wrote recently about, we may live in a nation of cowards. And if there was one virtue that you would like to inject into the citizens around you to turn this thing around, what's the one virtue do you think is the most missing to restrain these predators?
It's courage and dignity. The motto of the TrendsResearchInstitute, taught to me by my father, his soul rest in peace. Anytime I'd be talking away, he'd look at me in an Italian, he'd say, Papagallo, parrot. And he'd stop repeating what everybody else is saying and think for yourself. And so, to me, it's, I don't tell anybody what to believe. This is the way I see it. Knock yourself out. You see it the way you want to see it. But don't tell me I have to believe your way. And when I talk about courage, that's what it is. It's courage and dignity. The courage that you are your own person and the dignity to respect yourself and not bow down, look up to, or fawn over celebrities or politicians or anybody else. And so to me, it's dignity and courage. And until those elements are brought back into the human spirit, we're not going to see it. And when I talk about dignity and courage, look at the way people dress. We used to say they look like calzones. Look at the slobs that people have become. Look at how they present themselves. Look when you go out. Look at what's going on. So to me, those things have to be restored. And when, I always say, how's it going to change? And when people get healthy, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and I'm not talking about, airy-fairy spiritual stuff. I'm talking about finding a truth within oneself. And until those things change, I don't see anything changing. And when those things change, when enough people change within themselves, it's the 100th monkey syndrome. It all starts changing.
Well, and, I certainly agree with you. I don't mean to sound like an old fart, but I probably am. When I see kids with their, I shouldn't need to see your underwear unless you're actually in a car accident and they had to cut your pants off. I shouldn't need to see any of that stuff. Your underwear is there to protect your pants from your ass. And it's not decoration. It doesn't make you cool. Just pull your pants up, turn your cap around, and, perhaps try and seek gainful employment. Again, this is one of the things that when I was young, you worked. I had 3 jobs when I was a kid. I liked to work. It gave me a lot of skills in life. And I sympathize. Youth unemployment, it's tougher to get ahead in many ways now, but I just wish that people would sort of wake up to this kind of stuff and discover the necessary virtues for a civil society. We can't have the government replace that.
Exactly. And, and people say, by the way, I get, letters, as Peter does all the time, and people thank me for saying this, by the way. I get it from young guys. They say, Mr. Celente, I see you, you're always, you talk the talk. You walk the talk. And now I started changing. And those are the best letters I get. I've gone on a diet. I dress every day. And on and it doesn't cost. I'm not talking about buying Armani or Hugo Boss. I'm talking about you could go into Salvation Army and buy, or thrift stores and buy really high quality stuff. This isn't a money issue. You're putting clothes on your back one way or another. You don't have to put on, a hoodie and jeans every day. And I love the word hipsters. They ain't hip, man. Very furthest from it, Hip. I got a 4-day growth beard, and every one of us looks alike. No, and so to bring back style, grace, and dignity, when those kind of things start happening to me, everything changes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well said. We got a break coming up. This has been a great chat with Gerald Celente, who I'm sure, like me, will have to wipe the flecks of passionate foam off his microphone. We are going to come right back after the break. I do have time for